Some sad news in the world of the NFL as famed scouting director Gil Brandt has passed away. Gil Brandt was the vice president of player personnel in the NFL from 1960 to 1980, well, for the Dallas Cowboys. He went to the University of Wisconsin, left after 2 years, and actually was a photographer who specialized in newborn babies and actually was a part-time scout of the LA Rams at the recommendation of the great wide receiver Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch. San Francisco would make him a full-time scout in 1958. But when Dallas became an NFL squad in 1960, they decided to pluck him from Sanford to be their chief talent scout. And ironically enough, under GM Tex Schramm, he was actually a part-time scout for the Rams. So Schramm was on the Rams organization. Schramm said that Brandt would be one of the first people he would hire, and he did. Schramm, Brandt, and Tom Landry formed the Triumvirate, which guided the Cowboys for the first 29 years of the team's making things and all that. Gil Brandt was an iconic guy from 1959 to 1989. There's a lot of techniques he used. First off, he created a new scouting and evaluation system for prospects throughout the NFL. Even Giants GM George Young actually built the Giants scouting process thanks to the Cowboys system. Gil Brandt was one of the first to set up computers for scouting and talent evaluations. It wasn't heard of with computers and all that. Computers were big as city blocks back in the 1960s compared to the small ones we have today in the 2020s. The Cowboys had to systematically define which were traits, measurable qualities, and skills that could be exposed in numbers and formulas for the computer to understand it. They found a lot of prospects in other sports, such as key sprinters like Percy Howard, Colin Ridgway, Mac Percival, and Bob Hayes, with Tony Frisch, an Austrian soccer kicker, also there too. Brandt was actually one of the first scouts to actually look outside North America for potential players. Thus, he got Tony Frisch, his kicker. He would make unconventional draft choices in lower rounds based on potential. For one thing, he drafted Roger Staubach late in the 1965 draft. Of course, the problem was that Staubach went to Navy, and the Naval Academy forced you to have a 2-year service hitch at the time, in which you had to do that before you could be in the major in sports and all that. And the Cowboys waited a few years. Thankfully, Danny White and Craig Morton were there. Herschel Walker. Rumors were Herschel Walker wouldn't join the NFL. He would just stay in the USFL, but that folded. So the Cowboys did get Herschel Walker back. And Chad Hennings from Air Force. Same thing with this Air Service Academies. They used a psychometry test to identify the mental and personality makeup of prospects, finding players that were either undrafted or in the small college talent pool, like from a small college. Getting people like Drew Pearson, Cliff Harris, and Everson Walls that path, and actually created the NFL scouting combine. And he would make big trades. That impacted it, so that he could pick up guys like Randy White, Ed Tudor Jones, and his biggest draft day trade, Tony Dorsett, plucking the number 2 pick of the 1977 draft from the expansion Seattle Seahawks for 3 players that didn't amount to much. Anyway, Brandt's dismissal was huge because once Jerry Jones purchased the franchise, 9 weeks prior to Brandt's dismissal, it landed to Landy Selstrom, transfer destination, and Brandt being dismissed and all that. Unfortunately, Gil Brandt made some bad comments April 9, 2022 when Dwayne Haskins passed away. Brandt said that Haskins was living to be dead, so to speak, and said that, he didn't have a good work ethic and all that. and said, this is his words, maybe if he had stayed in school an extra year, he wouldn't do silly things. But a lot of people hated on all that. Brandt would apologize on Twitter, but some damages have been done and all that. After football, he would be a print analyst and draft expert and would join NFL.com as a senior analyst. And Brandt also would invite collegiate players to the NFL draft's green room every year. Gil Brandt was an icon in the Dallas Cowboys system, and 1 week before